Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to be discussing not only the Mask, the brand new free legendary lord that you'll have access to as soon as this patch drops on December 4th, but also the general updates coming to Slaanesh on the very same day. So this video will be split up into two parts. There'll be timestamps just in case you're just more interested in the update. So let's start off with the Mask, the brand new FLC legendary lord, and her faction is called the Accursed Troop. We got some faction and lord effects here. So faction effects has access to the Eternal Dance, allowing armies to assemble dancers to gain powerful buffs, army abilities, and rituals. We'll talk about that in much more detail in just a second. Casualty replenishment rate plus 10% for demonic infantry, cavalry, and chariot units in all armies. Hero capacity plus 2 for the Aluruses, which is great as early on you'll want to have them. Global and local recruitment duration minus 1 turn for Demonettes of Slaanesh and Exalted Demonettes of Slaanesh to the minimum of 1 turn. And then finally, Lord effects. We have wound recovery rate minus 3 turns. She's going to come back quite quickly if she ends up dying. Physical resistance extra 15% for Demonettes of Slaanesh and Exalted Demonettes of Slaanesh and Lord's Army. Minus 25% upkeep for all Demonette units in Lord's Army, which in all honesty I think should have just been flat out 15 reduction faction-wide, but hey, they already have a lot of faction effects. And then finally the ability, the Dance of Dreaming. We're going to be talking about the dancers in just a second. So there's a lot here. And as you can see, the starting army is very focused on your demons. But don't you worry, you're not fully incentivized just to bring in demons. You are more than capable to bring in mortals. You're going to start off in Lustria, which, yeah, the Lustria Ball kicks in very strong again. It's unfortunate, but space is a commodity when it comes to the Immortal Empires campaign. You'll be starting off in the far left side, which means that you're going to be fighting some very early on Dark Elves. You're right next to Skulltaker, and despite the fact that it's Slaanesh and Khorne, I've been able to get alliances with him. And obviously, yeah, you're going to be dealing with Yuan Bo, Marcus Wolfheart, and quite a few different factions. So the diversity is there at least, and you are able to leave, so don't you worry about that. You have a cult in Marienburg, so if you want to go somewhere else next turn, you are more than capable to. Her unique skill line is pretty decent. You can reduce enemy movement range, for example, so you can catch up to them. You can buff up your Demonettes and Demonic Cavalry quite dramatically. Hell, the skill point for the Demonic Cavalry and the Chariot units, that's faction-wide, which is insane. You're going to be able to make your Heartseekers even more scarier than they are, and all your Slaanesh Chariots. Well, the demonic ones at least. There's also a skill relating to giving yourself the Vanguard deployment, not only to yourself, but also the Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes. So if you want to like literally be within seconds of your enemy, this is going to be great. It's going to be very similar styling to what happened to Skulltaker. So very focused on your demons more than anything else, which fits with the Mask. Really, when it was on the tabletop, you would just feel there were demons. You couldn't really bring mortals. I think skill line overall, she's just pretty stacked, and it's going to show a lot of player power. She's only got access to one item, by the way, which is available to you at rank 14. You need to do a quest battle for it. Not the best, mostly because one slot is wasted on diplomatic relations with other Slaanesh factions, but the removal of enemy melee defense in the enemy armies is pretty damn sweet. Now there's only one big mechanic when it comes to the Mask of Slaanesh, and that's called the Eternal Dance. Now don't worry, it's not just for your character here, it's actually for all of your characters in the Mask's faction. The Eternal Dance is going to be a system where you're going to be able to create new forms of buffs, but also in some cases debuffs for your army. There are 4 different types of dancers, and each of them have their own effects, so you're going to be able to tailor armies in very weird ways. And I mean weird in the best possible way, because you can have armies focus more on combat, more on magical ability, more on defense. There's quite a lot here, and I'm scrolling through them. You can stop wherever you want. They all have like a specific trait, like for example, the Pageant of Pain has increased unit experience, so if you want to level up an army very quickly, there you go, and then you can just build your way up through it. This is all going to be focused around a new bar that you can see there right at the side, and that is tempo, meaning that as long as you're keeping with the tempo of the song, which means basically getting to combat, you will be able to unlock more and more buffs. So keeping that momentum going, like, you know, a good song, yeah, that's the most important thing in your campaign. So I played around for a few days, and I really like the fact that it's got bonuses and negatives to a lot of these nodes. Basically, it just means that you're going to get stronger in certain areas, but weaker in others. So you're not getting into this whole, oh my god, this army is absolutely unkillable situation. So there is still a bit of a player power creep, but it's not as dramatic as, say, what happened with the Skulltaker release. And from what I've been able to see, yeah, your balance is still pretty decent. Sure, you're going to be incredibly powerful, but it's going to take a while for you to get there, and you can lose those abilities if you don't keep up the momentum. It's kind of like the old fightiness bar that the Greenskins had, but not as dramatically quick to lose or gain. Though if you're fighting against some very large armies, yeah, you will get a lot of tempo. So yeah, it just kind of makes sense. I like it. It's very different. It is very different, but it also fits with the Masque of Slaanesh's theme incredibly well. Now, you can only get the benefits of one dance, so you have the Symphony of Excess, the Pageant of Pain, the Burning Bacchanal, or the Final Dance. And these you can switch between. There is a bit of a cooldown, just in case you want to change your army theme around. All of them, I think, are quite useful with different types of builds. Hell, I've got a lot of Slaanesh builds, and yeah, no reason to go, okay, I want to switch here, but if I switch to the Final Dance, for example, do I need to switch up my army dramatically and recruit a whole new army? And you can have as many lords as you want on them, so if you've got, say, for example, a bunch of them on the pageant, well, yeah, you're more than able to just have it like that. I would argue that this might be some of the most customization that I've seen for specific armies in Total War Warhammer, because unlike Daniel, for example, that just really is focused around him, and the armies are just extra, and then obviously the Warriors of Chaos have quite a lot, and sometimes 5 rosters, but it's not really customization, it's just really having unit choices. So this is good to see. More of this would be lovely, actually. Like I said, there's a lot that you can do here, and it's not just for the Masque of Slaanesh. You'll be able to do this with your Heralds of Slaanesh, with your Lords, your Chaos Lords. It is a pretty fun feature, especially since you're going to be running armies quite early into your campaign. From what I've been able to see, Yuan Bo and Marcus are going to be a bit of an issue. Not so much when you start getting your tempo up, though. And that tempo is going to be very, very important throughout the whole of campaign. If you want to be ridiculous, you can easily ignore it if you don't want to really get that tempo all the time. But that's not saying that you don't have the incentive to do these dances, because you will get faction-wide bonuses as soon as you complete them. So, for example, the Symphony of Excess will give you a lot of bonuses towards your infrastructure, plus 50 grow faction-wide, reduction to construction cost. It's so good. That's the one that I've been going for the beginning. And it's literally just get your lord, select your dance, and then start playing Total War. The great thing about it is it's just just start doing what you would normally do. Attack the enemy armies, attack the enemy settlements. That's how you'll get your bonuses. And while early on, it's not a lot of tempo. Once you start dealing with bigger armies, once you start dealing with bigger garrisons, all the usual stuff, you're going to be fine. Actually, I think during my first tester campaign, I was done, with all the dancers by turn 30, which is great. But I do tend to play a bit more aggressively compared to other players, so keep that in mind. I tend to play very, very aggressively, which does kind of screw me over sometimes. But that's how I've always played Total War. It's a big reason why I like Khorne so much, to be honest. And the Slaanesh stuff has always been quite aggressive if you just ignore the seduction stuff. There are further bonuses that you're going to get from your tempo, and that's literally just again, from playing the game. So extra devotees, extra leadership, bonus versus infantry. It's really good because it allows you just to get more out of it, and it incentivizes you to keep going. Again, if you slow down, well, you're going to start losing tempo, and yeah, you're going to start losing bonuses. But like I've said, you can get a lot of tempo just literally from getting into combat with larger armies and so on. If you can play your cards right, by the end of turn 8, you can basically be done. Also, it depends on the AI. If the AI's lost a lot of troops, by the time that you get to them, well, you're not really going to get much there. But yeah, the speed is not bad. It's really not that bad. Anytime a bar like that is introduced, I get worried that it's the return of fightiness, which it's never really good, but so far so good here. Now I just want to mention it here, yes, Subjugation will also provide tempo, which means that if you do want to go with the usual Slaanesh playstyle, you can. That's perfectly fine. Hell, in some cases it's probably the best thing to do because it means that you can just keep on moving. Basically the mechanics are all optional if you want to have them. Now the most important thing about this, because I know some people are going to be complaining already, if you've already been typing, calm down. Yes, when you complete dances, you can actually have them recorded in the repertoire and then load from the repertoire. So characters can actually just follow the same dance stuff, basically automatically, just in case there's specific dances that you like. To be fair, I haven't used this. I've mostly just been tailoring lords for different things. So like if it's more demon focused, I'll go a specific way, even if it's on the same dance, or if it's more mortal focused, the same, or just a general mix. Again, completely depends on your playstyle, but you can see that there is a decent amount of options. So really, experimentation is key here. We're going to be talking about the tech tree a little bit later, but there is a specific section there. So it's just the first section is going to be dedicated to your specific legendary lord, and that's also the case for NKARI and then later Dakala. It's kind of cool. It means that you get like lord specific tech. Small as it may be, it's only 6 nodes, but it's still pretty damn good. And that adds a lot to the fantasy of the specific characters, which I think is quite important. Finally, I do want to mention that if you do switch dances, you don't go all the way back to 0, so you do get some of the bonuses, and then you can just progress from there. So I'm going to start off a fresh campaign here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about my experience with the Mask, because I feel like a lot goes on into it. Generally, the FLC Lords have been kind of interesting in their own right. You know, we've got the Mask now, but we've had, say, for example, Arbal the Undefeated, Be'lakor is free also. These are characters which all deserve their own flavor, and they all get it, which is great. I think that's really, really important. The Mask is another character that just gets introduced for Slaanesh and feels like it's part of the Slaanesh faction. So far, the Slaanesh Lords all kind of feel very different, with NKARI obviously focusing more on subjugation and seduction. The Mask is going to focus more on the dances, which Creative Assembly have translated into the form of aggression, and I think that works quite well. So the Mask of Slaanesh is constantly dancing, being, you know, cursed by Slaanesh, where there was a miscommunication between both, but hey, you know. And she will now pop up into random locations, basically herald in the doom of the enemies that might be there, and then disappear. That's not really there too much, which ultimately I'd argue is a good thing, because while she is very well known to teleport from location to location, Omens of Destruction added in so many teleport mechanics that I was getting the fatigue. It was just really bad fatigue. You can still teleport with the use of cults and so on, and that I think is going to be useful if you just want a different start position. I did do a campaign in my own time where I just moved on to Marienburg and started there, which is a bit more hectic, I'm not going to lie, it is a bit more hectic. Because you have a minor settlement, you have to deal with Marienburg, then you've got Karl Franz declaring you, and like pretty much everyone else. So yeah, around turn 30, if you're playing very aggressively, you can basically get all the faction effects just unlocked, all the bonuses, which isn't too bad. From what I've been able to play, she feels very much like a Slaanesh character. I like the interpretation, and I can say that without an issue. I very much like the interpretation of the Mask of Slaanesh. This is a character that I've been waiting for a fair amount of time. Well, basically any Slaanesh character, to be honest. But you guys know me by now. But I'm really emotionally attached to this character because I used to play Slaanesh demons back in the day during 6th edition and so on. Well, more so general demons back then, and then just kind of branching out. It's an army that I very much held close to my heart, so getting the character that I used to play with on the tabletop is always kind of great to see. When it comes to like this game, you know, it's always really nice to see. I'm not too keen on the start position, I'm not going to lie, but at this point, the game's getting so full, you know, with every DLC, even though the DLCs so far have been like 1 per year, that cycle is introducing 4 Legendary Lords. Things are getting a little bit chock-a-block, right? It's a shame that, you know, we haven't seen much of a map expansion, and there is going to be a video dedicated to that. But at least now we have 3 characters in more or less faraway locations. The thing is, I see as NKARI and the Mask are too close, but with that aside, like playing the Mask as the only Slaanesh character so far, in that mentality, she's fun. I really enjoy her. She's very different to NKARI, and well, soon enough you'll be able to see T'Challa. Now, with that being said, we have to jump into the Slaanesh update because a few things have changed, so let's do that, shall we? It's going to be a long video. It's always nice when I can do a long video on a faction that I genuinely like to play. Alright, so time for the update now, and obviously we're going to be playing NKARI for this because he's the generic legendary lord for Slaanesh. So he doesn't have anything new, barring a few new techs, but it's kind of like what happened with Omens of Destruction, and it's, I mean, it's fine, but kind of disappointing, right? So, we're going to talk about a few things, and there's a lot to talk about in all honesty. So, first up, Tech Tree has received a pretty major overhaul. It's now divided between Disciples and Sensations, meaning a bunch of new techs. So Sensations will follow the same format that you're already used to with Slaanesh. It's just like the whole pillar system. The first section is just unique to NKARI, which is going to focus more around, more seduction, getting more units from that. Like I said, all three legendary lords have their own unique sensations. And the whole Sensations section has been rebalanced to be focused more on your infrastructure. There's a pretty good one there for upkeep production. It takes a while. It's like 6 turns per node. You're going to have to try and find ways to increase your research rate, which isn't too hard, but yeah, it can take a while. Overall, it's pretty damn good though. Like, it feels a lot better, it feels a lot more fluid, and it doesn't feel like it's all over the place, which is kind of like the original version. The tech tree vastly improved itself, and I think it's just for the better. You do notice it. I know tech isn't the most impressive thing for people, but believe me, you will notice it as you start playing through your campaign, as you start going for nodes that actually mean something to you. Personally, I like to get quite a decent amount of upkeep production as fast as possible, because it does mean that my armies are going to be a bit better. Demons are fairly expensive. Your infrastructure is better, but it's still not amazing, right? So we have to keep that in mind. Now, there are other changes coming in, because obviously we have a brand new set of branches with the Disciples branches, and this is going to work for your Mortals and your Demons. They're pretty much spread out, which is good. So the top section on the Demons and the bottom for the Mortals, with a little bit of interchanging there, but it's not too bad. Yeah, this means that if you're focusing more on demon builds, go for the demon techs. If you're focusing more on mortal builds, go for the mortal techs. So if you're playing T'Challa and you're going to be focusing more on mortals, there you go. NKARI, you're going to kind of mix more or less. And the Mask is more demon-centric, even though you can mix and match. You don't have to go with that playstyle, by the way. You can, if you want to play demons with T'Challa, you can. And if you want to play mortals with a Mask, you also can too. It's just the theming, which I think is kind of good, right? It just adds more uniqueness and more reason to play with all the lords. By the way, there is further upkeep production, so you can get like 9 upkeep production faction-wide on Sensations, but then there's like 10% for all demons or 10% for all mortals, which is really, really good. There's 19 flat there, not counting any further upkeep productions that you're going to be getting from skill trees or whatever else. It does mean that your armies are going to get ridiculously cheap very, very quickly. And I really do appreciate it. I think it's actually really, really important to have, just because the infrastructure for demonic factions has never, or mono-god factions, has never really been great. There is also the last bit, which is, yeah, your Keepers of Secrets. So if you want your Keepers of Secrets to have any extra spells and so on, that's its own dedicated section. I have mostly ignored that, but that's because, I'm not going to lie, I've been playing a lot of mortal builds, which is nice. It's nice to just like have a reason to do full-on mortal builds. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think anything's really changed with cults, which is a bit disappointing. Cults feel pretty much the same. I think after the Tzeentch update, we got spoiled to how cults could really be. And I understand that Tzeentch needs to have more structured cults more than anyone else. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't see too much. Like, I have not seen a reason to create more cults throughout a fair amount of playtime that I've had so far in this build. Maybe in the future we can get like a big cult update for all the monogod factions. I think that's something that really needs to be done, because like the fantasy has been kind of lost there. Maybe that's just me. But that's not all. We can talk about some other stuff which I think is quite exciting. Obviously, we do have the change to buildings like the other monogod factions. So if you build the mortal chain, you can only really go through the mortal buildings. There are some demon ones though. If you build the demon chain, you can only go through the demon buildings. There's been a revamp and a lot of effects have been changed up. The buildings feel a lot better now. It's the same thing like with how the tech, which I forgot to mention by the way, tech does improve replenishment. Replenishment for Slaanesh just generally feels a lot better, which is really, really nice. I feel like there would have been a lot more separation had we had mortal knights on demonic steeds, but yeah, that's just not happening. We'll have to see if anything changes in the future, but I think that just might be a Games Workshop thing more than anything else. Ultimately, NKARI's unique skill line feels pretty much the same, but I think that's fine, barring like the addition at the end, which is just going to be just a few extra updates. But NKARI wasn't really focused on like buffing up other stuff, it was more the damage that you can get out on this character, because he is a powerhouse, and I think that's the benefit that NKARI has always had as a character, being able to snipe out characters by just running straight at them. Yeah, you got like some really good upkeep production, which pairs really nicely with everything else, and then obviously all the tech. So yeah, you can get some pretty cheap armies with him. If you want a doom stack, now's the time. I'm not sure if this is new, mostly because yeah, I just don't deal with vassals and so on, but I've noticed that you can just create vassals now. So I can bring back high elves and I can just make them vassals, Elfarian and any other characters, which I mean is kind of cool. I hadn't noticed that before, which is why I'm just mentioning this now. I think it's kind of important to talk about, obviously. But I have done a campaign where I used that feature, and yeah, it's kind of nice sometimes. I still don't like the idea of vassals, because vassals haven't been reworked, and yeah, they're still pretty awful to deal with. Lords and Heroes have finally had updated skill lines, so I'm going to be going over all of them. You can stop wherever you want. The idea here is now bringing the Heralds, the Chaos Lords, and just like the generic heroes really up to speed. They have suffered quite a bit. There's a reason now they like keep your heralds as heralds. The keepers are good, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore the keepers of secrets, but sometimes, right, you just want something more. And I think it's just nice to get that updated there. It just feels so much better to have your generic heroes all brought up to snuff with all the other lords that are available in this game, because there are a lot of options for the monogods, because obviously you've got like the standard smaller ones and then you've got the upgraded versions, but I feel like those skill lines will now give you more reason to keep with the smaller ones if you prefer it for the sake of theming. That and like Demon Princes have always been kind of awful, haven't they? What I did find funny is that the Cultist of Slaanesh is very focused on mortals, because there's a speed bonus there for the hero's army. And yeah, you still can't get cultists for the Warriors of Chaos. If anyone from Creative Assembly is listening, cultists, please. It would really help the Warriors of Chaos factions if they had access to the cultists. Not only would that give them a basic summoner, which is always useful, but it's just kind of nice, right? I feel like something like that, let everyone have all the toys. Because it's not out of the question for cultists to be in warrior armies. Sometimes they're acting as informants and so on. But yeah, no, all the lords are now useful. I do feel like the Chaos Lord of Slaanesh is going to see slightly less uses, but that's because the Chaos Sorcerer Lord has come in and we've got access to a very powerful spellcaster, which again makes me think, oh well, I don't really need to use Demon Princes so much anymore, which is obviously quite useful. Large targets can be a massive issue when the AI just goes, okay, big boy, let's go for that, right? Plus more options. Like the idea of loads of options is always best. Like the Empire has so many of them, some other factions do. It's about time that all, or at least as many of the monogods get that. We're going to be talking about all the other ones, like the new ones in a second, don't you worry about that. But it's good, it's good. I've been able to sit down with a bunch of playthroughs and just play with the generics that we've already had access to, because that's something that I keep going back to, just making sure that they're up to speed and just stylized for that. Slaanesh has finally received the update it deserves. 7.0 looks like it's going to be fairly good, and that doesn't count as a review because 7.0 does not fall on the paid stuff. Just making it sure that that's stated there. But yeah, you get powerful bonuses, you get powerful buffs, everything seems to go well. Now we're going to jump into all the other stuff, because there is still a few things more to talk about. We have the Lords and Heroes introduced in Tides of Torment, which is kind of weird that we can't talk about it, like we can't show the skill trees during the battle embargo, because I feel like that's quite important, but hey. So, the Druchii Anointed is a minor spellcaster, meaning that you're going to get access to certain spells, you get certain choices, which locks out other choices. I think it works out quite well as a character. You've seen it in battle, it's already very, very powerful, so this gives you a character to play around with if you want something a little bit more killy, right? Whereas the Exalted Hero is a bit more defensive. So you've got multiple options there. 2 heroes in 1 DLC, I think, is going to be quite a lot. It's going to give you the options that you want with Slaanesh. All of them can mount up on the Demonic Steeds, by the way. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord, I mean, it's just a Spellcaster Lord. I'm not saying that to sound bad. It's just, yeah, it's a Spellcaster Lord. And I think that's a good thing. It's about time, right? You can use that with the Warriors of Chaos too, which is very, very useful. And we'll have a video dedicated to the Warriors of Chaos, don't you worry about that. Same thing with the Exalted Hero Slaanesh. You've got access to a Defensive Lord, which is pretty good at dealing damage too. So you've got all the options. I think Slaanesh is functionally complete now, barring like missing certain things, which we'll talk about like in the review. But there's a certain things that we can talk about right now, we can't talk about right now. Well, the Pleasure Knights being one of them. Like that's something that I don't think they can really stop talking about. But yeah, Slaanesh is in a pretty good spot, I think. As you can imagine, I played with Slaanesh for a fair amount of time. I even just like cancelled plans that I had for like going outside and so on, just so I could play with the faction, which is my faction, right? The Mask, pretty fun. I think that the Mask is incredibly unique and it shows a level of FLC getting higher. So if we go by the format of the last few like 1v1v1 Lords, there was nothing for Zinj. The one for Nurgle was pretty good, actually. I'm not going to complain. It's very basic, but it's very, very good. And then I didn't like Arbal. Epidemius was much better than Arbal in terms of quality. This is for a free Lord, by the way, not for anything attached to paid content, right? So I feel like the Mask is better than Epidemius in terms of like what to do, right? There's so much there. And I think that's really, really important because there is a quality level now achieved for the FLC Lords, which I think needs to keep on going, right? And you never know in the future. I'm expecting more FLC Lords as time progresses. There are more DLCs to come. I would argue that the Mask is on a DLC level quality basis now in terms of mechanics and stuff like that. So any future FLC content needs to be at that level and not like Arbal, where Arbal just kind of feels he got the scraps from everything else, right? It just felt like he got all the corn scraps. Epidemius, while basic, worked incredibly well. So there's a level of when content needs to be introduced for a character, like a mechanic. It doesn't have to be incredibly structured as long as it fits the theme, and Epidemius did that very well. The Mask had its own thing, and it just felt even better, right? Same thing with the Slaanesh update. I always thought Slaanesh was okay, right? Like I always enjoy playing Slaanesh. I feel like Slaanesh is in a very, very good spot. I get this faction isn't for everyone, considering that, yeah, it's a lot of micro and so on, but I feel like people don't seem to realize that you can ignore the micro and just go straight into the enemy lines. The Slaanesh troops play very, very well. The tech tree changes are wonderful. The skill updates are also very, very good. I can't really rate Slaanesh here because, well, Slaanesh for me has always been one of my favorite factions. But what I can say is that the gameplay in general has improved dramatically, which, yeah, that's what people wanted. Like, I wanted a small update to Slaanesh in the same way that Khorne got an update during Omens. That's definitely been achieved, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy the Slaanesh playthroughs a lot more. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. I will be live on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges if you want to pop by. We'll be streaming from now on until release. And yeah, there's a lot more videos to come. A lot of campaign videos. There'll be like 2 or 3 a day. So yeah, have a great one, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye. Okay, I'm coming in with a edit because I was totally wrong. And that's my fault. NKARI does in fact have a brand new mechanic, which, yeah, I wasn't expecting, but hey. So what you need to do is get your seductive influence all the way to the top with a vassal, right? Well, it's always best with a vassal. So I'm starting a fresh new campaign here where I'm just fighting the elves. I'm just going to auto-resolve my way through, and just the point here is to vassalize them fully, all right? So very simple. Takes about 2 turns for this first faction with Shraiths, right? Now, this isn't something that you want to do at the beginning, but it's very, very useful. So once they're fully vassalized, you're actually going to have an option like Arbal, which I did not spot for an absolute while. And this is because I am blind as hell. And then all you have to do is go into a region with the enemy army, right? That's simple enough. click on NKARI. You've got an option right above his face portrait where his skills are and his movement is, and you will convert that enemy lord, or vassal lord in this case, into a lord for yourself, and it will also convert some units into units for you. So in this case, it's been 2 Marauders, one with spears, one with swords, and a unit of Chaos Warriors with Grudges. That's incredible. Okay, yeah, no, look, I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it at the very beginning. This is what happens, by the way, when this was one of the last videos to record and I was really, really tired. It would have been too much of an issue to go back and re-edit everything, mostly because, as you can imagine, I have like fucking 2 terabytes worth of footage at the moment. And I have this really big fault of naming voice files like A1, B1, C1, depending on what file it was for. But I am very happy to be proven wrong here, and I will take the L very proudly. This is an interesting mechanic. It's probably something not that I'm going to use myself, because I play way too aggressively to have vassals and so on. But if you're a person that actually uses vassals, yeah, this is going to be useful to you. So, yeah, no, well done, Creative Assembly. You completely stumped me. It took me until like the day before the embargo dropped to realize this. So yeah, this is pretty damn cool. I look forward to like trying out NKARI properly on stream, and just like going full try to vassalize people. I think that's what I'm going to try and do. But I guess this is why you can start like bringing back dead factions and vassalize them instantly and so on. So yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, this is pretty cool. This is honestly very, very cool. All right. I love it when an update has surprises that even I couldn't see. Like, honestly, this has genuinely made me happy. This has genuinely made me happy. Wow. Shows that I need my glasses too. Have a good one, guys. See you soon.